Moving on to this evening's presentation, scope of Hoops Park work. Mike Talbot, Superintendent of Public Works. Mr. Talbot, welcome.
So thanks for putting us on the agenda tonight. This is a fairly short presentation. We have a project coming up at Hoops Park. Just want everyone to be aware of what we're doing. As everybody knows, everybody loves Hoops Park and all the activities we have out there and how meaningful it is for our community. So out of the, that's roughly approximately 14 acres out there, and the pond is about a 2.5 acre pond. So what we're doing is, and you'll see some pictures I'll show, there's been some failing of a section of the southwestern section of the wall. So what we're going to do is go in, drain the pond like we've had to do several times over the last 15 or 20 years, and we'll remove sediment, but we'll also be able to look at the condition of not only the southwest corner that we're really concentrating on, but the entire perimeter wall itself, because really that's the original wall. It's probably, what, Chuck, 100 years old now out there?
Yes, over actually.
Yeah, and we'll, there's a couple different things we're going to address, and it's a relatively small project, but at least it will hopefully maintain the pond and its integrity, and we'll probably have to factor in some other larger restoration projects out there over the next few years, or decade or so. So a little background, the pond wall does have issues, like I said. There's also issues with sediment and nutrient loading into the pond, outfall deterioration. And outfall, that's just a fancy word for where the water exits the pond. So that's over there near East Genesee Street, and from there it goes under Genesee Street, and it daylights back over in our old playground, past the playground there at Herman Ave Elementary School. We've been pursuing funding for this specific project for several years, and I really have to give credit to Christine and O'Neill and the city manager's office for just being tenacious and very persistent in following up on our application, and sure enough, didn't the Dormitory Authority award us $150,000 to address what our application had. So, and also back in 2019, 2020, right before the pandemic, ironically, there was a student project from Syracuse University that really looked at our pond and its health, and ironically, some of the things we're doing are similar to what they had proposed back then. So it's kind of nice to see. Now the work is going to occur this winter, so we're probably going to begin probably within the next 30 to 45 days. So what this simple presentation is just to make everybody aware. You'll see some activity out there. There'll be a little hardship once in a while if you're a park user or park walker, but we appreciate your patience, and it's really for the betterment of the park. So, and here are the pond wall concerns. The wall is basically comprised of cement, mortar, cobbles, and stone. Original wall construction believed to be during the 1920s when the park was established. We've made several repairs over the decades, consisting of specific area stone and cobble repairs / replacement. And that's mostly been in the upper levels. We really haven't done a very invasive or intensive look at the footing, the perimeter footing for the wall itself. Cement and mortar has been repointed at different times just to make it last. This effort will focus on the southwestern section of the pond wall, and you'll see some images coming up. And there's evidence of deterioration and slumping of the southwest pond wall, and more closely survey entire perimeter pond wall once the water is drained. So here is the southwest. So we're looking kind of where, if we're all standing where we're looking right here, the clubhouse is behind us. The stairs that enter into the pond area are right to off our right shoulder. So that's the southwest wall. You can see, some of the grass is encroaching on from the surface, but our real concern at this point is what's underneath the water and what the pond wall is sitting on as far as a footing. Up on the top right, you can see where the really bad deterioration has occurred. So there's another view of that. This is the same image, only it's a little more to the right, and that is where, obviously, there's obvious signs of deterioration, slumping. So we're very concerned on what the bottom of that looks like. We've had divers go down and look before, but you know, we're really going to drain it and take a really close look. And there's another view of it. So, and we all understand how beautiful Hoops Park is, and it just wouldn't be the same without a pond, because that pond wasn't naturally occurring. That was created back in the 20s when they established the park. And obviously, conditions have changed a lot since the pond was built. So that, and then another issue we're going to hopefully address here is the sediment and nutrient loading. Really, sediment loading is the amount of soil and silt that comes in to the pond from upstream. And nutrient loading are, you know, just what it is, similar to our issues with Owasco Lake. So, and some of the factors involved here, upstream construction and unlined stream banks contribute to sediment loading into the pond. So really, the entire you know, Hunter Brook there is unlined, meaning it's in soil. There's no engineered sluiceways or anything. Pond requires dredging to maintain uniform pond depth. I think back in the, I think when it was originally built, the pond was meant to be about 3.5 to 4 feet deep uniformly. But as you can imagine, there's one inlet into the pond, so the sediment will initially get dropped there and kind of moved around. But the stream itself moves on the eastern part of the pond. So it comes in on the east, and it wants to take that path and where it goes back out, and we'll show you the picture of it. So what we're going to do in this phase is install a structure or possibly two before the stream enters the pond to collect upstream sediment before it enters the pond. So really, it's the same idea as any new development has a detention pond or retention pond, whatever you want to call it, where before the surface water is released into the storm system, it has a way for the sediment to drop out. And that's what this is really going to be. Other alternatives include creating a new stream path with meanders and sediment drop points. So that would occur. We're not doing that but that is an option, to create more meanders in the creek before it comes into the pond. And of course, there's maintenance involved with that by cleaning out whatever structures installed the sediment in there. And well, like I said, we dredged the pond back in '07 and again in 2014 with Cuyahoga County Soil and Water. And they are the ones who are going to perform this service for us. They have the equipment, they have the specialization. What we do is assist them with staffing or hauling some of the sediment. So it's really, once we drain the pond and actually get out there and look, we'll have a better idea of what we're going to do in the southwest part, but also B, what the entire perimeter wall looks like. And here's the pond I was talking about. This is looking north, so you're looking at the pond in the kind of background there. So this is the stream as it comes in. You can see we've made efforts to line the stream with boulders, riprap, anything. We've had actually excess curbing that we put in to stop some of the erosion. You can see on the left part there, some of the erosion that does take place. And obviously when naturally occurring erosion happens, the sediment goes into the stream and gets carried down. Now we're looking south, so that you can see it's vegetated that way, which is not a bad thing. So that'll help hold the soil in place, but you can see some of the efforts we've had to do. And once again, we all know that area there is actually floods when we have a high rainfall event. And it recedes and it goes back, but it does flood. That's another view of the same section, only back a little bit. So you can see the stream comes in, meanders a little bit before, and then it's pretty much a straight shot right from there into our pond. Now, outfall renovation, this is where we release water that exits the pond. because you can't continually keep the water there. It would overflow its banks, which it does in heavy rainfall. And thanks very much to Chief Fritz and the fire department. We had a concern that after the outfall, the water, it was backing up on us because of any obstruction in the tunnel that goes from Hoops Park and then daylights out at the past Herman Ave School. But they went down and 2 people went in and did a reconnaissance of the structure, and it's in great shape. So that was great. And that's also the structure. Sometimes we have to go down in the beginning if the ducklings in the spring get washed over. You know, everyone's sitting there yelling for us to do something, so we have to go in there and get the ducks. But what we're going to do is redo this outfall with some more modern apparatus, because right now, literally, it's a piece of wood that we lift up and down. And Seamus Rhodes is our person who manages the park, and he does a great job. He's a one-man show out there, and we all know how nicely it looks. But this will also control the structure to better manage pond depth and control water elevation before major rain events. So it'll allow us to manipulate the elevation of the water and the depth to help everybody. And then install access restrictions of outlet control to prevent public from manipulating pond depth and water surface elevation. Because what happens on occasion is people who live in the vicinity there, with all good intentions, think they're helping out, and they'll pull our control structure, because it's easily accessible right now, and the pond will get way too low, and it takes forever to get back up to elevation. So that'll help us. It's more safe for everybody. That is the outfall structure right there, how it currently sits. And if you look in the middle, you see that kind of ridge there between the concrete. That's where a piece of wood gets bolted in. Pretty simple. I mean, it's really caveman technology. You want water, you stop it from going somewhere and you use it. So we're going to, improve this a little bit. And that is the tunnel that leads underneath right there. Another view, you can see the concrete is, showing its age and needs some help. And once again, this is the first step in probably a larger renovation of the pond over the next 10 years probably. Now this is where the pond comes from. So it's ironic, similar to Owasco Lake, a lot of the watershed for this pond is outside the city limits. So it actually reaches out into Owasco and Senate even. But that is the pond right there. And there's another view of where it daylights past Herman Ave Elementary School. So, this is a simple presentation right now. It's really informative to let people know we will be out there. We're not destroying anything. We're actually helping the pond and helping the park. But if anyone has any questions, all they have to do is call us up or come out and visit us sometime and watch what we're doing. So that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions? It's more informative than anything. So it's much needed. Appreciate council's, the mayor and the manager's support for our parks. Everyone knows we all enjoy parks, especially Hoops Park. People get married out there. There's a lot of community events. There's music, there's movies, all kinds of fun stuff.
Councilor Kent?
So thank you, Mr. Talbot. So really, you're trying to manage something that was created that really isn't a naturally occurring body of water. So I think nature wants to do its thing, and you're trying to find ways to just sort of protect our space so we can continue to enjoy the pond. So this is something that's it's an ongoing challenge, isn't it? So after this work is done, will this kind of take care of it for a while, or do we have like a long-range plan to just kind of keep up with it?
Well, I think ideally we'd be able to spend 12 months a year maintaining and helping the pond. In reality, we have one person that works
Right.
out there. In the wintertime, that same person has a plow route to do. So, that's why we're doing this work in the wintertime, because the water levels are typically lower. Even if it freezes, that kind of helps us, because a bulldozer will actually be out in the pond pushing the sediment up, and then an excavator will move it and we'll stage it and then remove it. But it is, I understand what you're saying, yes, and I'll be honest, we probably need to do a better job of monitoring what's going into the pond, but that's easier said than done,
Right.
because the majority of probably what's in that pond didn't come from our property.
How deep is it now?
I'm sorry?
How deep is the pond?
Well, by design, it's 3.5 to 4 feet deep. The last time we dredged in 2014, what we did beforehand, it all matter, the lake levels or pond levels are all indicative of the top elevation. So if your top elevation isn't the same today as it is tomorrow when you take a measurement, there's a margin of error in there. But when we dredged in 2014, some of the deeper parts of the pond were about 4.5 feet deep.
Really?
And that is we're all familiar with the island. You see I think it's a crane that hangs
Yeah.
out there, or a heron.
It's a blue heron.
Yeah. Off a little bit to the northwest is the deepest part of that.
Oh,
The most
interesting.
shallow parts seem to be obviously in the clubhouse end, the south end, and where the stream cuts a little bit to the right. So you can imagine all the sediment that's
Sure.
following
It's
that.
caught there, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Talbot, you mentioned efforts by city staff to secure grant funding through New York State DASNY grant. I also want to mention that Senator John Mannion, when he represented Auburn, he's the one that was able to secure that money for us. I just wanted to mention that as well. The retaining pond on Dickman's property, does that have anything to do with the flow into the stream that comes into?
The what now?
Retaining pond on Dickman's property?
I don't know. I think, they built that for obvious reasons to keep sediment from their activities there, and then they clean it out. But anything within the watershed, regardless of what activity is, it impacts our pond. Even if you live somewhere upstream and you pay True Green to come in every 2 weeks and treat your lawn, that ends up in our pond.
Sure.
Everything does. Dog waste, even the ducks, but
Sure.
they kind of manage themselves, But I don't know. I know what I think, but
Sure.
I don't have any proof. Everyone's activities impact our pond. And I think that's similar to everyone's efforts with the lake. I mean, what we do matters
Sure.
on a daily basis. So with this, especially such a small pond like this, it's very important. It's too bad we couldn't control the watershed. But like I said, most of it's outside the city limits.
Sure. Very good. Thank you.